The path to becoming a venture capitalist often sounds like this. Hi, I went to Stanford. Or, hang on, sometimes like this. Hi, I went to Harvard. Sometimes like this, not as much, but hi, I went to Princeton. Followed by, and I worked at, take your pick, Facebook, Google, Bain Capital, McKinsey. And then I fell into being a venture capitalist. Oh, and my dad was a venture capitalist. Well, folks, that is not the story of my two guests today. I'm Kent Lindstrom. I am a venture capitalist at the firm 8-Bit Capital in San Francisco, California, where we invest in seed stage software companies. And my guests today are Danielle Strachman and Michael Gibson of 1517 Fund. Danielle and Michael do not subscribe to the idea that you need to be highly credentialed to build a company in Silicon Valley. They don't subscribe to the idea that you need to be really at all credentialed because their 1517 Fund got started famously, when you might remember, Peter Thiel was suggesting that people who were building companies should just drop out of college. That's right, drop out of college and get going. Well, this episode has everything. Peter Thiel, like I said, the concept of burning the paper belt. What the heck is that? You're going to have to stick around and find out. And 1517 has been sticking there in your head, hasn't it? Well, if you're like me, I went to a public high school. You had to go look it up. You're going to like this one, folks. My guests today, Danielle Strachman and Michael Gibson of 1517 Fund. Welcome back. All right, welcome back. This is the Something Ventured podcast. I am Kent Lindstrom. I am your host. My guests today are Danielle Strachman and Michael Gibson of 1517 Fund. How are you guys doing?
Doing great today, Ken.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having us on.
This is great. My ongoing experiment with having two people on. I had the homebrew guys. That was great. The Saga guys. That was great. So this is going to be great.
Hopefully we don't ruin it for future guests.
No. The homebrew guys used the same microphone, which was kind of interesting.
Interesting.
So it worked out fine, but it was just like, no, we want to be in the same room. So there you go. I don't know what that means, but it's kind of so this is the part of the podcast where I say, hey, my guest, went to Stanford and then Harvard, and then they fell into venture capital. How you doing? That's not how you guys did it, though. So if it's okay, I'm going to unspool this because It's really interesting. I think the background. Maybe I'll start with Danielle. I've had Cyan Bannister on too, so I've heard interesting backgrounds. But I just want to unspool a little bit about. Let's just go back to kind of how you got here, but what you were doing before being a venture capitalist. Because it's not just going to Harvard, Stanford, working at Google, is it?
Didn't do any of those things.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for myself, where to start? I've worked in alternative education for over 20 years at this point.
Yeah.
And I got very involved with homeschooling communities about 20 years ago when I started a company I had called Heightened Learning, which was a tutoring company.
Right.
And those people really, really changed my life and my outlook. When people use the phrase lifelong learning, they usually mean for children. And what I learned being with these homeschoolers was that it was everybody. Everybody was like developing and changing over time. And I really loved that. And especially these homeschooling parents really showed me what it looked like to be child-led and like be respectful of the individual. And yeah, it was a very impactful crew for me to start rolling with, which very much had an impact on everything moving forward.
Yeah.
From working with these homeschooling communities that led to starting Innovations Academy, which is a charter school in San Diego that has, I think we're going into our 17th year now, which is just crazy to me. It's amazing when you found something. I was on the founding team and then operated the school for the first 2 years there, and I'm still on the board. I have a board meeting tonight. It's amazing when something grows like way past you. And like remains on, and that legacy is there. And we serve 400 children a year. That school is based on homeschooling principles.
And so just for a second here,
Sure.
I'm not an expert on homeschooling. Well, I'm a venture capitalist, so I guess I'm an expert on everything, right?
Of course.
I'm kidding. I have a friend who homeschooled their kids, and it's very different if you just explain than what you think. Because what you imagine is, you imagine some like Amish person, the dad goes off to
Right.
farm and the wife stays home, and the kids are all lined up in the thing, and they don't interact with other kids, and it's very weird.
Yep.
And my
And
friend was
so-
like, My
Yeah.
friend was like, no, like they first of all, they're each learning at their whatever pace they're learning, which is way faster than school. And then
Yep.
they go socialize with kids at the end of the
Yes.
day. They go play sports and all this stuff. They're not
Yes.
just, it's not some creepy thing where
No.
they're sitting at home.
And in fact, homeschoolers have a term for this. They call it school at homers. Um,
Right.
and that is more of the like, yeah, we're doing school at home. We get a textbook out. We're not necessarily going out into communities. And the beautiful thing about homeschooling is there are all kinds of different ways to do it.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of the people that I worked with in the past and know now when they're homeschooling, they're doing it as part of a community, often doing homeschool co-ops where different parents are taking on a facilitator role for different subjects. Um, Children are becoming experts in areas very, very quickly these days. And so some of them might be presenting about like, okay, hey, here's like the history buff lesson this week kind of thing. So a
Yeah.
lot of it is done in community. In the Bay, there's I think it's the Bay Area gifted homeschooler community. They get together, they do park days, they do field trips. We've actually invested in a company called Moonrise
Uh-huh.
that is very much taking this model of a children's third space where children can go and get dropped off and do a podcast
Yeah.
or hang out in the library or use all the materials they have there for any amount of time. They can be there for 2 hours, they can be there until it closes. They do field trips, things like this. And this is a much more common way of homeschooling now.
Yeah. Don't encourage the kids to do podcasts. There's too many podcasts.
I know. Yeah,
God, for
exactly.
God's sake, go do something else. Write a song. It is kind of by the way, buried news story in the last couple of days. The Department of Education, such as it is, came out with their "How Kids Are Doing Learning" thing.
Oh, interesting.
Terrible, like
Uh-oh.
worst at math, like in the United States, like worst at math
Yeah.
since '92, worst at reading, but
I
whatever.
saw that headline. That was
Yeah,
depressing.
ugh,
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Well,
Okay,
yeah,
so,
I mean, it speaks to like it's everyone's like, oh, if you change the school system, how will kids learn? I'm like, they're not learning now. Like, how do you accept
yeah.
this?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we had it after Sputnik for a little while, and people were
Yeah.
learning and something's gone wrong. What? So how do you get? Okay, so now we are well into our not this is a venture capital
Oh no,
type of story.
we love the
How do you?
tangents.
How do you? To take? We'll get to 15, 17 together. How do you get from here just to the threshold of being a venture capitalist?
I mean, for us, a lot of it was being at the Thiel Foundation. And both Mike and I wound up at the Thiel Foundation in kind of wily ways. But it was running that program, working with the Thiel Fellows, seeing some of the outcomes over
Yeah,
time that in year 5 of running the program, we said, hey, we could scale what we're doing. Sometimes we call 1517 Fellowship 2.0.
yeah,
And what we noticed, and things are changing over time. I think venture capitalists are more open uh, to young founders. That said, I think they're less open to non-pedigreed
yeah,
folks. And we'll talk to anybody. But what we saw was that, especially 10 years ago, it was very hard to even get a meeting for even our
yeah,
Thiel fellows. And looking back, I mean, it's pretty absurd some of the intros we tried to make to some of the like
yeah.
known quantity companies of the world, groups like, Figma and Oil Rooms and things
Right.
like that. And what we saw was that those venture capitalists weren't taking our young people seriously. So Michael and I said, well, I guess maybe we could become venture
Yeah.
capitalists. Like maybe we could just flip this on its head and start our firm.
Right. Okay, so you're at the Thiel Foundation is what it's called, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So Michael, how do you come here? You went to Stanford, you went to Harvard, you worked at Google. Some,
Michael would have gotten
Well,
kicked out of Google real fast.
by the way,
yeah.
you think I make that joke sometimes with venture capitalists, and they're like, "No, I went to Princeton, then
Right.
Stanford, then
Amazing.
worked at Google." But
Um,
so how do you come to the
yeah,
into
well,
this
I
world?
mean, funny enough, I did get pulled into this because I was Stanford related, actually.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, Danielle, maybe, I don't know, more background for your listeners. Danielle and I were on the founding team of the Thiel Fellowship, which is
Yeah.
Peter Thiel's philanthropic effort. You know, it became famous because it sounded like we were paying people to drop out of school. 100K grant to 20 people a year. Had to be 19 and under to apply.
Yeah.
But I that was not why I was hired. I met Peter, maybe a month and a half before that, and this is the Stanford connection. He was set to teach a class at Stanford Law School. on philosophy and technology and politics. And my background is I thought I was going to be an academic philosopher. I spent a lot of time in grad school. I've been to the inner temple of
Wow.
academia,
Yeah.
and I had seen it was empty on my own by my own
Right.
kids. And
Right.
so I did not finish my doctorate. I dropped out. I was a journalist for a time for MIT's
Yeah.
Technology Review, and I came into Peter's orbit through the Seasteading Institute. And so we just talked, and he's like, "Hey, I'm teaching this class. Could you help me do that?" And I was like, "Well, that sounds cool."
Yeah.
Um, so I took that job, and then I showed up to work the first day, and this is I could tell because it was my first day. It was I could tell you what day it was. It was September 27th, 2010, which is like 15 years ago. Will be
Yeah.
this coming September 27th. And I arrive at work, and I guess on a plane ride the night before, Peter, Jim O'Neill, who's now head of the CDC, which is kind of crazy, but
Wow.
he came to my desk, and he said, we had this idea on the plane that maybe we want to do an anti-road scholarship. That's what they called it first,
Yeah.
and we're going to give out these grants. So, but we got to announce this thing at TechCrunch Disrupt and come with me. So I get in this car with him and Peter, and we're like talking about what this thing is, how much money. So anyway, just got sucked into this on day
Yeah.
one, and it wasn't planned at all. And then Danielle, through connections,
Yeah.
mutual friends that she had with people at the Thiel Foundation, was brought on to bring order to this chaos. We had nothing. So,
Right. So,
2 weeks later, Danielle joins.
so you decided to forego the sweet philosophy money that you were going to be making and become a fish.
Yes.
So you guys are together. So you guys have been together as partners for 15 years, right?
Yeah,
That's the thing. So
wow, that's a
my,
long
Even
time to work
we
with
we
anyone.
met at an
Yeah.
old seasteading event that started as a seasteading event called Ephemeral, and we have our meet anniversary on the calendar, which even precedes working together by a few months. And so,
wow,
yeah, it's always wild of like, wow, we've
it
worked together for a long
it's a
time.
thing. I've talked to a few people about this in venture capital. The homebrew guys have been partners forever, and
Yeah.
they have a new fund that has no LPs, which
Oh, wow.
tells you how much
That's
money.
amazing. So they're just self-funding it.
Yeah, I
That's
think I mean the whole
baller.
the implication is they did so well somewhere along the line they don't
Yeah,
need LPs,
Amazing.
totally.
but they love working together so much that
Exactly.
they're doing another fund,
Yep.
which is interesting because there've been another this is way
Mm.
inside baseball, but there've been a lot of venture capital funds lately that have come together, people who hadn't worked together before and came apart before
Yeah,
very long.
Oh, of
So
course.
15-year relationship is pretty amazing.
right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah,
what?
I've wondered about like these big funds, Sequoia, Benchmark. They have they've figured out succession in
Yeah,
a way that works, I guess, for them.
yeah. Well,
But
Sequoia
when I
has.
think about smaller funds like ours and what we do, it feels less like this company that will continue to exist even if we step down,
Yeah,
and more like a rock band where, we're going to put out like five, six albums.
yeah,
And if the Beatles, John and Paul, if they retire, it's not like the Beatles keep going because
right.
it's like, a specific sound, a specific way of doing things.
Yeah,
And so I wonder with the fund, and maybe that's related to the structure of a partnership and so on, where I think there is something to like really gelling as a band.
right. Well,
Well,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
one thing I was going to jump in with is one question we get asked a lot. We're in our fourth fund, we're in our 10th year, is like, where do you guys see things in like 15, 20 years from now? And I can't really imagine a life where Michael and I aren't working together. And I think one instantiation of what 15, 17 looks like, and I like kind of joke, but it's not really a
Right,
joke, is like maybe we become 15, 17 familia to the point of like we become
right,
a family
right.
office. We just keep the people we love working with the most
Yeah,
on as capital partners. And then we've got where it's like we're becoming producers instead of the band, where it's like,
right,
okay,
Uh,
cool. We've got some funds we're backing. We've got some culture, art, music projects on a nonprofit arm. Like we're doing all these different things under a larger umbrella.
right. By the way, it's a ridiculous question. Like LPs ask people, like,
Yeah.
like I want to invest in multiple funds. It's like, why? Like,
How about you just invest in the
what,
best?
what is that? What concept is that? Like like it makes no sense. It's like I'm investing in Google today, and I want
Yeah,
to just make sure I never have to buy another stock. It's just a weird
yeah,
concept. And
Yeah.
you think of all the funds that have blown up. I won't name them, but a bunch of them have blown up.
yeah,
Every one of those told their LPs
yeah.
we're going to be around forever, and
Right.
Oh
they
yeah, right.
weren't.
Right. And you mean blowing up in a bad way, not in the good way.
Well,
Yeah.
or they've gone their own ways, and so
Totally.
whatever the I don't think it's that terrible, but
Yeah.
LPs might imagine that that's not a great thing. It
Totally.
happens a lot, so nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Like,
No, I know.
invest
Yeah,
in this
totally.
fund, enjoy your returns, and
Right.
we'll talk. Whatever happens will happen, man.
It's so
Um,
true.
that's not the answer I'd
No,
probably
either
actually
Jesus
tell.
is in your heart or he isn't. What?
Yeah,
Man,
right. So
I already want you part of 1517 Amalia. I'm like, oh,
right,
you get this.
exactly. Um, you can only be what you can be. So okay, so you guys are at the Thiel Foundation. Explain to
Mhm.
people, because this was a really big deal at the time, what the idea was of the college students dropping out and
Yeah.
that whole thing.
Well, yeah, there was a confluence of things, and some of it has been lost to time where things became so big that it's hard to remember where things were in 2010.
Yeah,
Like one thing we've noticed is that just the phrase higher education bubble. There's a bubble in higher ed. There's a journalist named Glenn Reynolds who I think coined that term, but it hadn't really become popular until Peter Thiel started saying that in 2010 and
yeah,
using that term. So if you look at the use of that term after the start of our program really takes off. So I think in Peter's mind, there were a couple trends. One was the uh, just extremely skyrocketing high cost of tuition and the debt that people were taking on in order to pay it. And he worried that that people who had great ideas, they might not be able to pursue these things because they got to get a safe but well-paying job after
yeah.
they graduate. So the idea was if we get someone before they've accumulated that debt, that's what, why we decided on 19. And also because Peter was the first investor in Facebook. I
Yeah,
believe Zuckerberg was 19 when he
yeah.
pitched Peter. If not 19, then just barely 20.
So how'd that work out?
Yeah. So and then if you look at PayPal as well,
Right.
um, the company was comprised of a lot of people from Stanford, but also University of Illinois,
Yeah.
Max Levchin, Luke Nozick, and that crowd.
Right.
And there were a number of people there who had no college or who
Yeah.
didn't finish college. They had left. So I
By the
think in
way,
Peter's mind, he had seen just like the productive capacity or the creativity of some of these younger people.
yeah.
And so that with this larger trend of higher ed was like, okay, what if we tell someone, hey, you don't have to do this, you can do something else.
By the way, it's funny. University of Illinois. Did you ever see Risky Business, the
Yes.
movie? That was the loser school.
Oh, was it?
Like
I forgot
in that
about that.
movie, he's like he was trying to get into Princeton,
Yeah,
but
he wants to get into Princeton,
right.
right?
But if it doesn't work out and he's like a screw up, the line is like, "Oh, looks like U of I" when everything's going bad, which is ironic because this is before Mark Andreessen and Max Levchin went there,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
showing us that it's one of the great institutions, and going to U of I is not a
Yeah.
loser school at all.
I know
Uh,
that. I mean, in terms of overlooked talent, we meet a lot of people at great schools like that, these great state universities where, for maybe they want to pay in-state tuition instead of some private tuition
yeah.
on the East Coast. And
It's an interesting. I've had a number of black venture capitalists on, and one of them was talking about, why aren't there more black entrepreneurs? And one of the things he posited was that if you've been through whatever you've been through, because you're, a black guy, you got into Stanford, when you get the offer from Goldman Sachs for $900,000 a year,
mm,
you kind of take it because you're
yeah,
like, I've seen enough. And where if you're a person who just hasn't ever had a problem and blah, blah, you're like, I'll just drop out. And so he
right.
posited that it wasn't that they couldn't do the entrepreneurial thing as much. It's that they take the Goldman Sachs job and get really rich that way instead because it,
I think that's
it's the
true of
choice they make.
immigrants as well. We
Yeah,
meet, or the
that's right.
children of immigrants. I think they're the well-respected professions,
Right.
but also just the stability and reliability of a big paycheck from
Well, and
Yeah.
the phrase that we hear a lot is sort of this sense of like, hey, my parents did what they could for me so I could have this opportunity.
yeah, right.
And so
Yeah.
now that the opportunity is here, I'm going to take it. And often what we talk with people about is that those opportunities change over time. and like doing a startup is another opportunity. But I think
Yeah.
it totally makes sense. Like our whole thing is about making conscious decisions for oneself. It's not, I would hate it if someone came to me and was like, "Oh, I heard you guys banging the drum on being a dropout or not going to Goldman, and so I'm going to do that instead." It's like it's got to be your own individual will and choice.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and part of
yeah,
it, I mean, for me, to like have a little fun here, is that you. I think the thing that maybe got to people about it was the encouraging people to drop out. Because when
yeah,
people come to me, I've said this a number of times, and say, I want to start a company, I'm like, you should not start a company.
right. That's
It's a
right.
really bad idea.
Right.
It's
Yep.
terrible.
Yep.
You're going to fail. 90% of them
Yep.
fail. Don't do it.
Right.
And then if they're like, well, I don't care if you say I'm still going to start a company, you're like, okay, now
Have
I
fun
want to
storming
talk
the
to you.
castle.
Now I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to encourage you to start a company. It's a terrible idea. And
Yeah.
so uh, I like, was that this thing encouraging people to drop out? Was the dropping out real? Like, you can always go back, right?
Yep.
And is it, how about this? Is it particular schools? Because a lot of people say, well, Harvard, you don't learn anything, no offense, but you don't learn anything at Harvard. The whole reason Goldman Sachs takes people from Harvard is so they just screened all the high school kids in the country and picked the best one. So aren't you just getting
Yep.
the elite kids anyway?
Yep. I think going back to 2010 when this was all starting and when we launched the first set of fellows in 2011, I remember we worked with a media team and they told us, in media, you get 2 weeks and that's about it. And then everything dies down and is quiet.
Hmm.
What was fascinating was that we were just blitzed for 8 weeks on higher education bubble. And it was this sense of that it was absolute blasphemy for a young person to even talk about taking time off school. There was no such thing as the American gap year. There was like the
Ugh,
European gap year, maybe in between high school and college. Um, but it did not exist. And so I think for a lot of young people, they had had some sense of something's not right. I don't know what it is.
yeah,
I'm being driven onto this escalator, but I don't even know how to articulate it. So when Peter came out and said, "Hey, this is all potentially bullshit for you," it kind of gave them the aha of like,
yeah,
wait, this is kind of what I've been feeling and sensing. I haven't had the words for it. Like, and maybe not going is okay, and maybe taking a gap year or a gap semester is okay. And now what's interesting is it's totally normal.
yeah,
Like even on college applications, I talked to a young man who deferred his acceptance to Duke, and I don't know if this was on the application to Duke or if it was only after he was accepted. There's the literal checkbox for, are you going to take a gap year? And
yeah.
I think that did not exist before. And
Wow.
so I think there's this real cultural moment, and that was really one of the big aims of the fellowship was to get this meme out there that like, hey, you could potentially do something else. You don't have to sit in school for 4 years. I also think as an educator, and someone who thinks about the future a lot, I think a lot like with transportation, it's literal time travel. When you can take an airplane or soon a supersonic jet somewhere, like okay, why would you take a car across the US? And I feel like it's the same with education. There's no reason that the degree still needs to be 4 years.
Right.
It's completely ludicrous, which means 4 years is it is like it like it feels longer than it used to
Yeah.
because there's more opportunity cost at this point. And so the fact that universities haven't iterated on just being like, hey, we're now a 2 year program, we're a 1 year program,
Yeah.
like, and these things to me is absolutely ludicrous that they're so stuck in the past.
Yeah.
And more young people are not only like doing these gap years and things, but even parents are saying like, hey, have you thought about a gap year? And like,
Yeah.
hey, have you thought about this? And now this is a normal part of conversation between parents and teens now. And that was just not true
Yeah.
at all 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny when you're in college too. You're like, I can get it done in 4 years, and then take one of the three jobs that exist in the world. Which when I went was management consulting, investment banking, and being a lawyer. And
Yep.
then you get out and you're like, wait, I now have like 50 years to do this. If I'd taken 1 year to go to Europe, I'd
Yeah.
still have 50 years
Right. It's a blip in the
to
radar.
do
Yeah.
this. But at the time, you're like, gotta go, gotta get into that
Yeah.
banking job because
Well, and the world of work has really changed a lot. The idea that you would be at one institution for your entire career is very long gone. And when I hear about young people like Gen Z who are at who are hired somewhere for more than 2 years. I'm like, oh, they've done a little bit of a tenure, and like
Yeah.
that was not true before.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So this idea that you would do the same skill for a long time and not be upskilling all the time, the fact that you're not going to be at the same institution if you get a job. There also isn't that loyalty, like, pensions and things like that, like are just very few and far between. So
Yeah.
so much has changed that university is not
Yeah.
cut up with.
Well, boy, were you guys on trend with this one. I mean, what do you make of the
Yeah.
past couple of years? I mean, Mark Andreessen has said has said publicly the quality of students that started coming out of Ivy Leagues, I'm pretty sure I got this right, in the last 10 years is terrible. They can't do anything.
Yep.
Mm.
They're in HR in week two, as only Mark Andreessen would say. And we advise our companies not to hire a lot of these people and go to
Yeah,
Univi
I
instead, I
think
guess.
what we saw, we mentioned like the financial effects on people's life choices. Like, okay, they have this debt, they have to take a safe job. What came to see with the fellowship and what we do now is that there are much more sort of insidious character deforming aspects of the whole educational experience from K through 12 through college, where it's become this tournament where you're competing against all these people for exclusive spots and you're competing by trying to appear wonderful to an admissions committee. So
Yeah.
it's like you start to choose to do things, the vacations you
Yes.
take, which preschool you go to, which philanthropic activities you undertake, all of this to impress some committee. And then it sort of carries on beyond that into the professions and so on, so that by the time you come out of that, you've actually stripped yourself of all of everything that makes you unique. And maybe you've lost your curiosity because you're no longer choosing to learn things for their own sake. Instead, you're doing it as a means to some other leg up into one of these established institutions. And what I hate about the whole thing is that, yeah, I think it means we're less creative as a society. I think people are just more and more homogenous coming out of this beast of a thing. I mean, that's probably why I'm a little more harsh on
Yeah.
higher ed than Danielle is.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, life choices. I'm like, no, you by entering this tournament, you will suffer in some
Right.
ways that maybe you didn't anticipate.
Well, and it will shape you, but
Yeah,
in
Yeah.
very unanticipated ways.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you, people don't believe me. When I grew up, San Diego, California, it came to be summertime. It's like summertime. See ya.
Yep.
Uh, be home
Right.
by dark,
Yeah, right,
roughly.
exactly.
Yep. That's
Oh, get some books at the library. I'm going to sit here read Lord of the Rings under a tree. Going to go play pickup baseball. Do nothing for a
yep.
whole
Yeah,
summer. No,
that's
you know,
Right.
exactly right.
You weren't
Danielle
thinking
has a
about
term
what hot
she uses called a
internship should you
yeah,
have.
nope. You want to find the other kids? All their bikes are in front of somebody's
Yep. That's
house.
right.
Not locked
right.
up, by the way. Um,
Yep.
so, okay. So
Yeah,
this
we
is
use
fun.
this term unstructured time and
Yeah.
that's what's missing. That's what you're describing. But we like try to build this into what we do now,
You just
where
rebranded summer.
Yeah,
Like,
basically. Well, it's funny because we have a teen camp that we run because at one point a few years ago we were like, all right, we got to go younger. Like we got to reach more into high school and younger high
yeah.
school. And so we started this camp we call 2E from the education literature on twice exceptionalism. And it's 30 teens that we're running it our third time in October. And what's fascinating is some of these effects that we're talking about. And one of the things at camp is that we do a Zoom call beforehand to orient everybody. And one of the first questions we had, we get it every single time we do an orientation, is what time is curfew? And I was like, wait, what? Like, I was shocked the first time they asked this. And I was like, curfew? I was like, there is no curfew. I was like, your butt needs to be in the minivan on Friday morning at 8 a.m. to like go to stuff.
Right.
You can stay up till 7:59,
Yeah.
but your butt better be in the
Yeah.
minivan. But like, and then it was funny, even though we set that expectation, even the first night of camp, hey, what time is curfew? It's like, no, there's
Right.
no curfew. And I remember I think this was the first year, maybe it was the second year. We're on site on the campsite, and it must have been like 2-ish in the morning. And I heard a loud scream and then lots of laughter. And I was like, they're fine. I
Yeah.
don't need to check on anything.
Yeah.
And we got so much feedback from that first year. Wow. Like, not only did I meet great people and get to go see tech companies and deep tech stuff and all this, but I got to make my own decisions as a teenager. And I
Yeah.
never get to do that. And I never thought that that would be a transformational piece of our camp, just letting people know you choose your bedtime.
Yeah. It's weird. It'll never happen again that there'll be a pre-internet because
Right.
a pre-internet society where you're like, you explain it to people and like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, we just like read a book for like 4 hours, and
Yeah.
you're like, I'm going to meet my friend, in
Yeah.
real world because it's the only place you can meet a friend.
Right.
Like, there's no, you just talk on the phone, I guess. And then the internet came and you learned how to use it and it existed. And there's only like a small group of people in history
Yep.
that'll ever kind of have crossed that boundary.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
this is fun, but you guys started 15, 17. You started a venture capital firm. We come to that. I went to a public high school, 15, 17. Do you want to like
Oh yeah.
help me
So
with that one?
uh yeah, it's on this theme about higher ed and maybe how it's not cracked up to all it's meant, advertised. So 1517 is the Protestant Reformation. It's when Martin Luther nails his 95 Theses to a church door. And what he was Protestant, what they're protesting at that initially was the sale of indulgences. So the Catholic Church was selling this piece of paper. It would help you or your loved ones get out of purgatory much
Great
faster.
business, by the way.
Yeah, really great business.
Good business model.
So
Absolutely.
we decided that the diploma, the college diploma, is the modern indulgence. And
Ah,
so by using the number, yeah, people would ask about it if we had it on a T-shirt, and we wanted to take a stand against that idea of the
yeah.
indulgence.
And now you have the nuts and bolts, though, of a venture firm. You've got to raise money,
Yep.
invest in some things. How'd it go?
Yeah, let's see. We've been doing this for 10 years, and I think my personal biggest learning is that the market you're in is really everything. And we raised our first fund start to finish in 8 months. We raised a $20 million
Wow.
fund. What we didn't know was that that was fast. Um,
Yes.
People kept telling us it was fast, and I was
Yeah.
like, we're just good at what we do. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But we were hitting at the right time. There were plenty of people who were very skeptical about our thesis and what we were doing in this
Yeah.
Fellowship 2.0 model. But for the people who got it, they were quick yeses into the fund. Um, and we write very early stage checks, angel and pre-seed. But it's been interesting because we're on our fourth fund now, very different market, than all the funds that we've raised. And so
Right.
the learning is always to kind of stay humble based on like you're like the thing that also surprised me early on is that I thought because we were a small fund that it meant we were sort of like in safe harbor from the world of global macro. I was like, oh, we're a little $20 million fund. We're like way off to the side over here. And what I learned over time is no, you're just in the middle of the ocean with a dinghy and you're getting sloshed around. And, sometimes I joke and say like A16Z is an aircraft carrier. Maybe now we're a speedboat at a $100 million fund. And I always tell our founders, you're out there in the water in floaties. Like,
Right.
and so you're just trying to survive everything that's happening. And some of it's your will, and some of it's a miracle, and some of it's market change. And you just got to be humble about that.
Yeah. And how has it? Oh man, this is the worst podcast question ever. But we'll land this here. How has it evolved?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people start a fund, and you go back and you look, or you have to keep the websites, and it's like, oh, it's all about the future of aging or something,
Sure.
and then they just invest in whatever they want, and
Yeah, that's
then
right.
all that is just lost to
Yeah.
history, and they're like, we
Yeah.
invested in Zoom.
Yeah. Right.
Um, so in that context,
Yeah.
how has it evolved? Have you stuck with what you were doing, or is it like,
Yeah.
well, now we just kind of invest in SpaceX secondary?
It's funny because we had never started or worked at any other venture fund. We sometimes say we do things the 1517 way. And I remember meeting with a fund, multiple funds, and asking them about their thesis. And then it was very clear they were off thesis all the time. In fact, when I think we were raising our second fund, we had an LP ask us, like, what percentage of your founders fit your non-degree thesis? We're like, oh, I don't know, 85, 90%. And he was like, oh, wow, you're actually doing what you say you do. And I didn't realize that would be a surprise.
We get that. That is funny. You did what you said. We're like,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
what
Had no idea that was an
it's a
outlier
thing. Yeah.
activity. Yeah. But Michael, you want to pontificate a little bit about some of I mean, we've stuck very much to what we
Well,
do, but
yeah,
we've
we
also
we
evolved the thesis.
so yeah, we still invest in people who don't have college degrees. That's the vast majority. We will break that from time to time if we meet a mad scientist and he has 5 PhDs, but
Yeah.
convinces us he's working on the frontier of something cool. What has evolved is the size of checks that we're writing. When we started, we'd mainly do like a 250K pre-seed check. Now we'll do up to 1 million in the pre-seed.
Right.
We've also branched out doing that. We have like a 100K check summer program we do, um, little things like that. But by and large, the strategy is the same. We love being the first money in. We love helping people get started, and then we'll follow on. Out of that fund in the seed and possibly Series A. What we also do are SPVs beyond that. So that's another thing that's evolved where it's like as our outlier companies have gone on to do amazing things, it's been interesting to see that there's appetite for our investors who are mainly like, Silicon Valley type people to family offices. It's like they want access to those deals as they mature through mid to late stage. So now we're like this multi-stage fund in a way where our primary activity is talent sourcing and a little development, but like we're making investments across the life of a company from all the way to IPO.
And what have been your hits, or what was your first hit? Like, when was the first time you're like, oh, we got one, like that worked?
Yeah. Our first hit is a company called Luminar.
Yeah.
They make the sensors for autonomous driving. They're in the most recent Volvo, and they IPO'd in December of 2020. And just really extraordinary to watch, like the tech and the company be built there. And we have another company now, Lambda Labs, that we were one of the very first investors in. They started as a photo sharing app, actually, and now everybody uses them for GPUs in the cloud.
Yeah.
Uh, and, we anticipate some big news for them in Q1. They just closed their Series E.
Was there a moment for you guys? I asked this as a early, far earlier in the process of you having a fund, where where you go, okay, this thing has raised,
Mhm.
like it's different now. Like now, instead of like, well, here's our idea in 15,
Yep.
17, and da da da, you're like,
Yeah.
we invested in this thing. And this thing means there's an 80% chance this fund is going to return five
Yep.
times your capital. Is there a
Yep.
different, I'm asking you about the feeling. Is there like a different
Yeah.
feeling when that happens?
Oh,
There's
you mean like in the evaluation of a founder
No, no,
or
no. Like when you as a fund manager, you're
yeah.
telling a
yeah.
story. You got a bunch of companies. They're promising. They're neat.
Yep.
Mhm.
It's
Yep.
cool. Da da da. And then
Yep.
one day you're like, it's not
Yep.
a story anymore.
Yep.
Luminar has done a
Yep.
round of
Yeah.
300 million.
Yep.
Is it a
Yeah.
relief? Is it a,
What we're noticing right now is we're at the 10th year of Fund One, and we have two one-year extensions. And what we're noticing is that, yeah, we've actually already returned 4.5x to our investors in actual DPI. But the
geez.
really big return,
Yeah.
multiple, is still here to come. And I would say it is, for me personally, it's like an awe and shock kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because when we're looking at the multiples, not only on the fund of like, okay, like we're going to be over a 10x multiple here on the whole fund. And then when we look at some of our SPVs, one of our SPVs is sitting at a 24x right now,
Wow.
pre-IPO of this company. For me, it's very humbling personally. I'm just like, holy moly. And we've been batting around a rather large number that once
Holy
these
crap.
things
It's
come to
working.
pass, that we might actually return to people. I like can't even
Yeah,
say
but all
I'm
that
feeling
said,
like
it's
that.
interesting is like so our first fund was 20 million initial deployment, 3 years. So it's like 2018, 19, we start to raise fund two. And we have, Luminar's tracking well. We had a company called Loom that was
Yeah.
doing really well. And we're pitching our fund two, and these potential LPs are just like, well, these are unrealized gains. This isn't real. And
We're like, yeah, but we're in year three of a pre-seed fund.
I'll
Yeah.
always remember that. And I was a little angry. So I said to
Yeah.
this person, I was like, listen, she said, come back to us when you have some realized gain.
Wait, no, no. She said come back to us when we have an IPO.
Yeah.
Man, that's
So
like,
I said to this person, I said, when we have an IPO, I'm going to clip out the story in the Wall Street Journal and send it to you. And I'm going to leave a note that says, I don't need your money anymore.
oh, that would be so satisfying. That's like the venture capital,
Well, we
like,
So
said
when
that
Luminar went public and they were on
less
the
than a
cover
year
of Wall
later.
Street Journal in 2020, I did it. I was a little bit,
oh,
but I sent her the note.
that's so petty. That is so petty, but that's so good. Oh, that just,
But she's kind of right. It's like
Yeah.
unrealized gains. I heard someone
yeah.
Yeah, it's like you
Uh,
can't count your chickens before they hatch, but still, it is really tantalizing when that inflection point hits, and sometimes it happens really quick. We have a company in our third fund called Positron. They make chips for inference, which is like not training these AI models, but actually deploying them. So they're competing with NVIDIA, the small team, Thiel Fellow from 2013. And it's incredibly to me to see how fast they've grown in just two
Oh my
years.
God,
They're
yeah,
already
incredible.
about to raise a Series B, and that's at very high valuations given the industry they're in. And so it's
yeah,
like, geez, that is incredible.
Well, and lastly, I'll add one more thing, which is that, for a long time, like our sense of what we were doing is like, okay, we're looking for things that could become potential unicorns. And what's interesting in this market is that like the decacorn is not so far off. And
right.
we have multiple companies in our fund three, uh, and soon with our fund four companies is those matriculate that we're like, oh. Yeah, actually, a lot of these could be decacorns, and that 100K angel check we put in as the very first investor, that one check alone is going to have a ridiculous return if these things come to pass.
Yeah. And so 10 years now, how are you feeling about it? Like, are you, man, this is like a thing you should do for 10 years and no more? Are you
Mm.
guys still getting along?
Oh
Tell me
yeah.
if you're not, but
Yeah, yeah.
like, how do you look back? That's a solid, I mean, I've had a number of people on who lived their careers. I just had Frank Rotman on, and they've had multiple phases. He
Sure.
basically founded Capital One, then he did QED, any one of which would be a whole career for anybody else, and now he's doing a new thing. Is this it where you're like, this relationship's great, on we go, or I'm going to go back and start another school, or how are you guys feeling?
Oh my God, I'd have to be a glutton for punishment to want to go start another school. I know too much now. I've been to the inner temple.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, for me, I'll just speak for myself here. Maybe Michael will throw some strange curveball, but we love working together. And not only that, like the team that we've built is really incredible. And when we first started 15, 17, what kept me up at night was how on earth are we going to find other people who are going to treat young people with respect, not talk down to them, be excellent mentors. Like, what is that going to look like? And in hindsight, everything is always much clearer. But it's like, okay, people we worked with at the Thiel Foundation, like Nick Arnett, people who are at partner organizations like Zach Slayback, though, they came on actually like 8 years ago at this point. And then other people we've built on the team have been previous founders or people who worked with other partner organizations of ours over time. And so I just feel really amazing that like we've assembled this team that can do more for more people. And I feel really good about those conversations that are happening. I don't feel like, oh gosh, I've got to monitor how this person's talking to a young founder or train them
yeah,
because they all used to be young founders. And so for me, it just feels really, really good. And actually, I really feel like with our fourth fund now, we're catching this super interesting stride and period of time where in the last 2 years, young people working on harder and harder problems, the barriers are becoming lower. And so we're funding younger people working on harder tech problems. And that to me is like the sweet spot of just people working on crazy inventions and getting them started, at 18 or sometimes even when they're in high school with a venture check.
yeah,
Yeah, I would double down on that. I think in a sense we joke sometimes that we are a school because
That's true.
it's we're a little bit like the X-Men Professor X. He has this school that he runs for mutants, and it looks
yeah,
different from other schools.
right,
But the students are quite extraordinary, and I find because we're working with younger people, because they're working on the frontiers of science and tech, it very much feels like this alternative university that
yeah,
we've got going. It's really self-directed. It's a little bit like homeschooling CEO slash scientist, so different in that way. But it is very much like resembles that because it is an education for them and for us. And so I get a thrill out of learning about all these different things that people are working on.
yeah,
So I love that thrill. Your last question before about the feeling, I guess you do get used to things where when the fellowship started, it was like blew my mind when someone raised a Series B and the company was, on paper worth $80 million. Like, wow, that's a lot. And now it's kind of crazy. It's kind of like big wave surfing or something. You get used to the 6 footers. Now you're out there trying to get 100-foot wave.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
and you're
It's
just
a,
doing it.
it's a
It's like,
little
okay.
addictive.
Yeah.
It comes through that you guys get along. Like you can just kind of
Oh
tell
yeah.
from talking to you guys. We've
Well,
had,
and we had to
yeah,
learn to, not to keep everything like super rosy as if we've not been through hard times, but we've also learned to like fight well and fight
yeah,
right. Like it's important to be able to do that. And I think it was during fund two, we were really feeling the pressure of like, okay, we've got to raise this fund. It's
yeah.
taking longer. Things are harder to do. People don't believe that we do what we do, which is like psychically frustrating. And so then, Michael and I will joke that it's then like the little things that drive you crazy. Like, I don't like the way you wrote that subject on that email. And
Yeah,
it's like, okay. And usually what we found is that when one or the other is frustrated with each other, for us, our like under the skin problem tends to be that one or the other isn't feeling appreciated enough.
yeah,
So usually when something comes up, it's like, okay, hold on. Where aren't you feeling appreciated? Like, let's talk about that. And like being able to have that conversation and
right.
then sort of right the ship.
Yeah. And you guys know it too. Like my partner and I have been together working together for like 15 or 20 years, and like we know all this stuff. Like you're not going to be surprised like, "Oh crap, he's got that characteristic." Like
Yeah.
the good stuff, the bad stuff, you kind of
Yeah.
know all of it. And we've actually had LPs. I've done a podcast with my partner Jonathan Abrams, and so there's your guest selection process. And and we've had LPs say, well, one of the things I did is I went back and listened to how you guys got along, and
Mm.
that's kind of what convinced me that
Totally.
this made sense. I'll take this home with like kind of a couple last things now. But Michael, you wrote a book.
I did,
What
yeah.
the? Where'd you find time for that? What
Michael's a
like
great writer too. It's
that's
not
a
just like, oh, put some
See,
words
this
on
is why we're
paper.
great teammates here. She's
yeah. You're a hype person too. So and tell us about the book title and what it means, and we'll.
Yeah, I called it Paper Belt on Fire because there's this growing distrust or lack of faith in
By the way,
institutions.
that could be a sci-fi book,
Yeah,
like
right.
volume one of the trilogy, right?
Right.
It's
Like
good. Yeah.
what's that Fahrenheit 451?
Yeah, exactly.
Um yeah, and I'm not like because I thought the universities as one of the major institutions in our country were like but one example of institutional failure. And because we saw, people working on the edge of some of these other failing institutions or struggling, and that could be everything from the Federal Reserve and banks to the media. Um, I thought I'd take the broader perspective.
Yeah.
And so I called it the paper belt because a buddy of mine, Balaji Srinivasan, we'd talk, and this term came to mean for us this area from Washington, D.C. to Boston that runs on paper. It's like they print money on paper in
Yeah.
D.C.,
Wow.
laws, media in New York is printed on paper, and diplomas are paper. And for me, that stood out because paper requires authentication. And
Yeah.
this is like, so we worked with Vitalik Buterin, helped him launch Ethereum 2014. So really started to grok this understanding of why someone would want to create a blockchain. It's because there's this institution and there could be something like a piece of paper, and that institution is supposed to authenticate that this thing is valuable, like Harvard saying, hey, that diploma is real,
Yeah.
and it signals something of value. But the overall commentary is that, well, that's not true. We can't trust these people anymore to tell us that
Yeah.
because there's so many different ways they've failed or have performed poorly. So to me, that's why I named it Paper Belt on Fire. I mean, maybe I could have focused that more. It's interesting. There's a publisher that bought the rights to the book, Jim O'Shaughnessy's. He started a publishing house called Infinite Books, and they're going to release a paperback version in the
Oh,
months ahead. And I think they're going to change the title because they think that maybe the paper belt as a concept was a little too amorphous, but the story is about, some of the things we've touched on,
yeah.
which is just like the failure of higher ed and what it was like to work behind the scenes at the Thiel Fellowship.
Has the credential just changed? Is it now like Y Combinator? You get into Y Combinator and you're really not trying to start a company. You're really just trying to get a job at another company or put Y Combinator on your LinkedIn. Like, do people just need a credential?
There is the signaling problem in the labor market. So it's like it is tough for employers or investors or anyone to figure out
Right.
is this the real deal or is this a lemon? And so I think they've come to rely on these other institutions to try to sort the labor market for them. Why, how that sorting occurs, that's like a deeper critique. It's like not actually the education, it's like just the ability to get in these things and
Yeah.
finish the assignments and so on. But yeah, I think that signaling problem is really tough to solve. I don't know how to solve that. And so maybe you're right. It's like these credentials do act as some way for someone to signal something about themselves.
Yeah. Well, we now come to this point. I'll kind of end here, but I feel like throughout my career, or just being a kid and then whatever, there have been these shifts in technology over time. The internet emerged, the PC emerged, the internet emerged, mobile emerged. In the next few years, amazing businesses are created, right? The internet, you get Amazon and digital photography, probably you get Facebook, you get, mobile, you get Uber. And now comes something that feels to me like a real thing, which is the AI
Hmm.
wave. Been around forever, but here we are with people using it. Um, and by the way, I've touched from Richard Socher to Eric Ries, a lot of people on this podcast. I've asked them if we're going to have to blow up the data centers, and none of them say no. They all kind of say, "I don't think so," in that kind of voice. But anyway, here's AI. What do you guys make of this
What we're
wave?
really excited about with the AI wave is younger and younger people getting to the frontiers of knowledge. When we have this camp that we've hosted now, this will be our third time. It's just pretty incredible, like the depth of knowledge they have. In fact, the first camp we had in the very early AI days, um, I remember going around to our deep tech companies with these 14 to 18-year-olds and leaning over to Michael and saying, we need to get these teenagers on our diligence calls. They are asking questions that are ridiculously advanced.
Mm,
Uh, and so we've started doing that some.
yeah,
But for me as an educator, I think the AI revolution really opens up a lot for autodidacts and seeing that younger people are going to get to the frontier so much faster. And there's so many advantages of what's coming, but that's the one that excites me most.
that's cool. Michael, what are
Yeah,
you thinking?
I don't have any. I think that I would, yeah, to emphasize what Danielle's saying, it's incredible for the autodidacts out there how fast they can move now,
Yeah,
and the range across different things is impressive. But I think we still have some ways to go. It feels another term Balaji is putting out there is like AI is great for middle to middle, not end to end. So it's like the way we use it in our company or we've seen out is like you've got to start whatever you're doing. Maybe AI can take you from, the first quarter to the third end of the third quarter, but you better be at the end to verify everything in it and edit it and so on. And that's with writing, with code. So I don't know. Maybe it seems like it's plateauing a little bit right now, but maybe it takes off again at
yeah.
the same rate of improvement.
Are we going to have to blow up the data centers?
No.
Okay, wow, that's the first no I've
Yeah,
ever
no, I'm
gotten.
like a very firm no on that. These people who are
You
like,
guys are very
maybe
optimistic.
not. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, weird.
Yeah. Well, they're worried about the paperclip, right? You tell it to make a trillion paperclips
right.
instead of a million, and it just destroys humanity to get the resources. But in any
I guess
case,
that's a deeper philosophical question about the nature of consciousness and agency and so on. We don't have to go that far of
yeah.
like,
By the way,
but
an AI told me that I founded LinkedIn, which I did not. So
yeah.
maybe we shouldn't worry too much
Yeah.
yet
Yeah, like
until it
we're
gets that
far
strong.
away from that. But my model, I've been in a ski town, living there most of the time over the last few years. And so my model now for thinking about risk is actually a skier tra in an avalanche where the avalanche behind us is death by asteroid, death by climate, death by stagnation, where maybe limited resources lead to catastrophes like war. So we have to make progress, meaning we have to move, otherwise we're toast. On the other hand, if we go too fast, if we are moving so fast we can't avoid obstacles like stones and tough turns, then we'll also die because we'll fall. So there's like some optimal golden mean of the rate of progress that we have to make, where either we have to avoid the threats behind us and we have to avoid the threats of moving too fast. But what we can't do is move still. We can't stand still.
I love
Whereas I
that.
think, and I like that model because a lot of the rhetoric on one side or the other is like not acknowledging that there are these two-sided dangers
Yeah.
going on.
That's fantastic. Well, this has been great. How do people find you? Like find you, your writing, your thoughts, your fund?
We're both on X. We
Excellent.
post things from time to time, but they're also welcome to reach out to us at our website. We have a contact form that we receive and answer. I don't,
Wow.
maybe the other funds don't do that. They're
That's
tough.
cool.
They're a little inaccessible, but we love meeting people over the forums.
All right.
We write on Substack. We have a lot of old posts on Medium.
Love
Uh,
it.
we'll be working in our next website iteration to kind of centralize some of those writings a bit more. But yeah, there's lots of places to find us.
All right. Well, thanks so much. This has been great.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's awesome. Thanks
wonderful.
for having
Really
me.
Uh,
fun conversation.
all right. This has been the Something Ventured podcast. My guests, Danielle Strachman, Michael Gibson of the 15, oh, it's 1517 Fund, not the 1517 Fund, right?
We just called 1517 Fund.
Thanks so much. Talk to you next time.